Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and today we're back with Star Citizen. Now, they had a big event in PAX Australia showing off some new stuff, but they also had a new release. And what is really notable about this is that finally I think they've made some major changes to the combat mechanics and joystick controls in particular, to finally make mouse and keyboard not the absolute ruler of everything here. This is me flying my Hornet with a bunch of extra lasers, using my Cytec X52 Pro. And yeah, you can see I'm making pretty good work of these Vandal here in Vandal Swarm. Now, they have switched to a weapon hit locator rather than an aim locator, which actually seems to be working pretty well. Their reasoning was that they wanted you to be looking at where your shots would land, be focusing on the target ship, rather than focusing on a point in space in front of it, and this seems to be working pretty well, I think. That isn't the main change, but you can see that it's effective. However, it's not interesting to watch me flying a Hornet for 15 minutes. Let's go back to some other stuff that was released this weekend. So, big news was that they were showing off some new modules at PAX Australia. They had a big live show. Yeah, they showed off this new ship, which is now available for people to, get in return for backing the game. They can now get access to the Aegis Redeemer, which was the winner of the next great Starship competition. Their reality TV show where they had a bunch of design teams try to show that they really were better than the game's designers at coming up with ship designs. So this was 4 Horsemen, I believe, were the winners. It was supposed to be a gunship that is capable of dropping marines and stuff. And so we get, of course, this nice little cinematic showing it off. But moreover, this cinematic served to set up the next big module reveal, the first-person shooter module, which, well, actually seems a little bit of a easier task when you consider they were using CryEngine, which has already had a pretty strong record of being used for first-person shooters. Many people were wondering why they used a CryEngine for spaceship game, but clearly using it for a first-person shooter is a no-brainer. Now, I'm only showing excerpts from this here because you can go to their site, go to YouTube and see the whole thing. But one of the crowd favourite highlights of this was when one team was pinned down by enemies that were hiding behind cover. They ran to the gravity generator core, turned it off, and as, of course, the gravity goes away, well, what happens is everybody starts to float up in the air. So for everyone that remembers Shattered Horizon and wishes there was a replacement, perhaps Star Citizen will bring us this. There's the stuff floating into the air, and now presumably there will be some mechanic with combat suits that have jets, there will be recoil from weapons pushing you around. But it looks like that those without built-in suit maneuvering capabilities will be able to bounce off of walls, grab onto things, move around. At least that's what it looks like. I'm not sure how the grenade throwing mechanic works since there's no ballistic arc. It'll be interesting to find out how this ultimately works. Now, presumably this is another module, so those people that don't have alpha access as part of their package will probably have to pay the $5 module pass. If you remember, there was $5 for Arena Commander. Well, this will be presumably another $5 to access if you don't already have alpha access, and we don't know when this will be released, but it's clear that they've been doing some good stuff with it. Anyway, that's enough of other people's footage. We're going to go back to Arena Commander, and I want to test out the new maneuvering system in a ship which is wholly unsuited to Arena Commander. This is the Aurora, right? The Aurora is, of course, the most popular ship because it was the cheapest one. And since there's no way to upgrade your spaceship beyond buying a better one, a lot of people are just flying this. And actually a lot of people are, not playing Arena Commander simply because the Aurora is so lousy. It's slow, it has very weak weapon systems, it doesn't have many hard points, and it's pretty fragile to boot. All the same, let's see how if the new flight control system actually helps me out. Now, what they've done, beyond the target tailing or the gun tailing indicator or whatever, right? The major change is that when you are close to a target, they've added something that is similar to auto-aim. It's essentially a flight control system that when you get close to a target, it will start to average your control inputs with idealized control inputs, and the closer you get, the stronger that gets averaged. And this essentially is avoiding a lot of the problems with IFCS, which is causing people to pogo back and forth across the target. I spent a lot of time adjusting my control curves, and I got pretty good at it, but I switched back to the default control curves, and this is better than my highly tuned, joystick setup. And even then, my highly tuned joystick setup was incapable of competing with a mouse. Of course, the Aurora never really benefited from the mouse as much as the Hornet did because its weapons were not gimbaled. You could actually get the gimbaled weapons off of other spacecraft and attach them to the Aurora, but of course that meant you had to own other spacecraft, so that wasn't really a solution for people that had this as their only ship. Of course, I believe they've also said that anyone with an Aurora will be able to change it to a Mustang at some point in the future when the Mustang becomes flight capable. The Mustang Omega is hangar ready, which means that it can be viewed in the hangar. Oh nice! You see that? It shot the wing off and then it spun out of control and then I finished it off. Now, speaking of ships being hangar ready, the Aegis Gladius is hangar ready, and I gotta be careful not to say Gladiator because the Gladiator is a bomber which has not yet been integrated, but the Gladius is a light fighter, the predecessor to the Hornet, and I guess it's intended as a kind of stepping stone between the 300i and the Hornet. At least it will be once you can fly it, because you can sit in the hangar, you can admire its controls, tweak its weapons loadout probably, but you can't actually fly it in Arena Commander at this time. It was built by the Manchester team because they are working on Squadron 42, the military space sim campaign. So obviously they needed some more military type vehicles to round out the campaign, and the Gladius was one they came up with. Now you can view it in the Holo Viewer on the web page if you don't want to spend the $90 to get it as a ship in your hangar, or the $105 if you want it as a package. There's no rush because this is a permanent addition to the hangar, so it won't be going away, within some time limit. Anyway, back with the Aurora, we're still taking on those hostiles and showing them who's boss and all that. You'll also notice I've been using track IR with this, which I previously had incorrectly stated wasn't supported, but actually is, and is really nice to have. You can use it on spacecraft with gimbaled weapons to actually aim and fire the weapons, but that is a skill which I have yet to master. It actually is quite hard looking at a hostile at the same time as flying and everything else. Oh, my ship's been beaten up quite a bit. Well, never mind. Tough little ship is going to keep on going until it dies. Anyway, let's move on to another addition to the Star Citizen Pledge store, the Drake Herald. Now, Drake, as you know, build the pirate ships. Well, this is an information runner. It's supposedly a spacecraft designed to move space data around between organizations that want to keep it off the communications networks. I guess that's the plan, but it's a small ship. It has a really cool web page to look at, and it's only available for 2 weeks. This is from their second wave of ship designs that really filled out some fascinating niches in the concept persistent universe. It's $85 for those that want to pledge for it, and if you get it, you're going to get it for with lifetime insurance. If you get it right now, it's not going to be in your hangar anytime soon, so we don't know when it's useful, and it's probably not going to be particularly useful until the persistent universe comes around. We're not even sure what use it will have in the persistent universe. It will probably be a specific subset of missions which is only available to those people with this tiny specialized data handling ship. And of course it has been established that every single ship is going to be available in the game for in-game cash. So, this is very much a niche item that's probably only going to be useful in the persistent universe. So I suspect the number of people that want it is very limited. However, it is relatively cheap for those people that want to support development and like the idea of having, ships of dubious legality in their hangars. One advantage the Aurora does have over the Hornet, beyond being slower and less gunned and more fragile, it does appear to actually accelerate a little faster, so it's a lot easier to get blackout and red out when you're flying this thing, especially now that we've fixed a lot of the control systems. Ah, brilliant. So that's end of wave 2. We've got all the way up to wave 15 to survive if we want. This is the stock loadout I'm flying with. I'm not flying with any replaced weapon systems or anything, even although I have a ton of spacecraft, and so in theory I could swap this out and make perhaps a better version. The specific Aurora I own is the LX, which is the luxury version, and I will point out that the model is still missing the leather seats that were supposed to come with it. If you look back at the original description, it is supposed to come with leather seats, and the leather seats are only visible in the LN, the Legionnaire variant. Oh, missiles, and chaff goes away, yes. Starting to take some hits, and oh, asteroid, asteroid! Darn, I just made those leather seats brown leather seats. Okay, and hostile coming in! Shoot it, shoot it! And he's turning away, turning away. Shields are down, and the only defense I have is being more offensive. And I don't mean by cursing at them. Yeah, so one of the things that's really kind of more obvious, you know, when you're flying around now, you can actually really see the hostiles. Previously, we have been kind of jousting in space and flying past, but I think the enemy AI has been, you know, fixed up a little, and now you're going to find yourself getting a much better look at the targets as they try to pull off the same maneuvers as you do. Oh, there are missiles coming in. The chaff is not reloading quickly enough for me. I'm really starting to take some hits. Thankfully, this is a tough little ship able to pull lots and lots of Gs. Big update also with this release. This is 0.9.2. They have doubled the size of all the arenas, so you'll notice that I have not yet got a warning about getting close to the edge of the arena, which practically filled your ears every time you played the game any other time with the previous arena sizes. Now they haven't, there's a longer project to upgrade the CryEngine coordinate system to use double precision mathematics, and that will mean that they can have really large arenas, something more consistent with a fighter simulator. You know, if you think about it, CryEngine was previously used for first-person shooters, where you're running around or perhaps driving around. It was not really meant for the scales required for, you know, flying spacecraft around. Oh, this guy's dodging around this asteroid here. Very nice, but you will be mine. I will take you down. I will take... Oh crap, what happened? Oh darn. Oh, and he crashed into the asteroid. And I missed it! I don't know what happened there. I had to whack through, I had to hit buttons to fix my view. As they said, I guess track IR support is still a little buggy, but that's okay. I'm happy to have buggy rather than not at all. Okay. I love the Vandal because you can shoot the bits off them and their ships fall apart. I mean, these spaceship designs are really unrealistic for all sorts of technical reasons, but having all those bits and pieces sticking out that don't really serve any, you know, visible function does mean you can shoot them off and they will come off as debris. That makes a lot of sense. Well, the Vandal, of course, are the exception because they do have a giant wing blade which they actually have used to ram me on several occasions, although I'm not sure it's actually implemented to do any more damage. Yes, one more scavenger down. I should actually see if I can give co-op Vandal Swarm a go with a trio of Aurora just to see how viable they are. I'm being supported by a couple of NPCs in Hornets, and they're probably doing just as much, they're probably doing more damage than me. I mean, they're well equipped for this. They have AIs that presumably can aim with a little more reliability. Oh man. The dying star level does look good, but it is full of space fog everywhere. Space fog is actually very, very useful in, you know, visual effects. People don't appreciate that in space, you know, there's no fog most of the time to give you a sense of depth perception that you might get in the atmosphere. And it's actually quite common in special effects scenes to artificially add fog to make things look big. I remember the effects guys on Star Trek 3 shooting the space dock scene. You know, they built the model and they said, this model looks tiny when we film it. So they solved that by getting a little smoke and spraying it inside the scene, so inside the model, so that when they were moving around it suddenly looked a lot bigger, suddenly felt that it had scale. And so adding fog, you know, as silly as it is, it does make things seem a lot bigger. Anyway, let's move on to the last ship they've introduced to the Pledge store, the Redeemer. The Redeemer we saw earlier, it is a gunship troop transport. It is essentially designed for war, and it has these weird, you know, scissor-like engine systems which they come up with all sorts of fascinating flavor text to explain how they are, you know, better at maneuvering, and they move heat out of the main hull more efficiently. They're designed by engineers rather than graphic designers. Honestly, no, I mean, it's just designed to look very cool. Now, it's designed to be a troop transporter, which might mean it gives you some advantage in the, you know, the first-person mod when it comes out, or the first-person module when it appears. Honestly, nobody really knows at this point. It is going to be a permanent addition to the store, so if it gives teams some huge advantage in the first-person module, I won't be surprised if people start selling their bits and pieces and buying them. For 2 weeks, it's going to be available in a lifetime insurance version because it was never offered before, but it will be permanently available in the store for $250, which is the original price the Constellation had. Of course, the Constellation has since had its cost bumped up to $275, so yeah, it is very strange to be thinking of spending that amount of money on a virtual spaceship. But again, you gotta remember, what you're doing is you're donating money to the developers to make the game develop the way you want it, and you're getting a virtual spaceship. It's not really a purchase, it's a pledge of support. Yeah, you know, everybody always wants me to clarify that, and I gotta do that. It's not for everyone. And oh, yes, killed the Vandal Scavenger. But then again, yes, flying around Arena Commander in an Aurora is not necessarily everyone's idea of fun. And speaking of auroras, mine is taking a beautiful view of that dying star, or dying moon. Is broken moon and dying star or something like that. I don't know. They're just very spacey sci-fi style levels here. Okay, once again, you see that using the new flight system, it's a lot easier to actually stay close in and get a decent look at these targets. For a long time, it was just very hard to get in close to a target and stay in close. You would just be jousting around everywhere. But I think they must have changed the AI, or just simply the control systems have been improved sufficiently that this is finally viable. You know, Elite, Dangerous, the combat system is well-rounded, and you do spend a lot of time jockeying for position, and it is possible to really use your flying to your advantage. And that hasn't been true in Star Citizen for a long time. Furthermore, Elite does seem, you know, more sedate, I think, because perhaps the spacecraft turn a little more slowly. But in terms of velocities, actually, the spacecraft between both games fly at roughly the same speed. One of the big differences, though, is that in Elite, the spacecraft are a lot larger. These ones are much more, they're the size of, like, Winnebagos, you know? They're the size of RVs and trucks and things like that. Whereas the spacecraft in Elite are more like the size of aircraft. And the largest ships in Elite are currently the size of very, very large buildings. You know, there's a picture comparing them to the Houses of Parliament. And to a certain extent, since you can only fly the single-seater ships in Arena Commander, it is kind of hiding the fact that Star Citizen does actually have very large ships. But even then, their, you know, Constellation is very small compared to even a mid-range ship in Elite. The Reclaimer, which was the salvage ship that they introduced for a limited sale, which the art on that is fabulous, I gotta say. The concept designer on that really did a great job. Oh look, I finally reached the edge of the arena. That is something I haven't had very often. Okay, finish this person off, finish this Vandal off before he disappears out the edge. Okay, now we still have hostiles over here, gotta zip across the map to them. Yeah, the largest ship that I own is a the Retaliator bomber, which is something like 70 odd meters long, and even then there's many ships that I've flown in Elite which are much larger. And clearly the technology in Star Citizen is superior because the spacecraft have much smaller engines, a lot less space in the hull is devoted to things like flying the spacecraft. I mean, they feel like cars in space as opposed to, you know, spaceships, which have large amounts of areas of the ship that are simply devoted to the machinery that makes the spacecraft majestically fly between the stars. Here's my friend coming up to help me. Yes, ooh, nice there. These Vandal, they seem to like to turn at the last minute before flying past me, which is strange because they are the ones with the giant blades on their wing. I do not want to get one of those blades through my cockpit. Okay, there he is, and once again sneaking past me and not coming in. Okay, come on! Oh! Oh! Ow! 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 Wait, I should be dead. Well, I should be dead, but since I'm still alive, I will call this whole experiment a success. I think the improvements to the flight control system are great. They make the game viable for people with gamepads and joysticks at last. Of course, there will be a bunch of people that complain that we're essentially now getting auto aim built into the game, which will no doubt annoy some purists. But you know, if you are a purist who is upset by this kind of thing, I will say I am not upset when they change the laws of physics to make the game playable and interesting. So if I don't get mad, you guys shouldn't get mad. Anyway, I hope to be seeing and shooting some of you guys in Star Citizen. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.